Well, good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, the Commander of United States Space Command, General James Dickinson. General Dickinson is a plank owner in the United States Space Command. He served as our first deputy commander when the command was initially established. Prior to that, to the command's establishment, General Dickinson commanded the Army's Space and Missile Defense Command. He's the senior air defense artillery officer in the United States Army. The general holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Colorado State University, a Master of Science in Operations Research and Systems Analysis from the Colorado School of Mines, and a master's degree in Strategic Studies from the United States Army War College. We're very pleased that he's taken time from his busy schedule today to share some of his perspectives with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm welcome for General Dickinson.
Please sit down. That was nice. You haven't even heard anything yet, and I get a standing ovation. Oh, but hey, it's great to be here. Welcome to Colorado. For those of you that have traveled, I see some in the audience. I'm pretty sure you've traveled to come here. But thanks for traveling all the way to this beautiful state. Driving up here today from Peterson Space Force Base. Now, quite beautiful, and we've had some weather here the last couple of weeks, and if you look at the mountain, a little bit hard on the angle here to see it, but there's a lot of snow on it. And so this is the snow season for Colorado. It kind of starts off a little slow in the fall, but it certainly makes up for it in the spring. And so one day it could be 70 degrees, and the next day we could have a foot of snow. So hopefully we won't experience all 4 seasons in a single week or the 3 days that you'll be here. But it is an honor for me to be here today, and I'd be remiss if I didn't start off by thanking the folks that put this conference together, and that would be the Air Force Academy, Department of Law, and my own U.S. Space Command Office of the Staff Judge Advocate, as well as the University of Nebraska College of Law and the University of Mississippi School of Law for really putting this together, and the support and the partnership to bring us all together for this conference. So this is the second conference of this kind we have hosted. Last year's conference was centered on baselining our understanding of space law. My charge is that with this baseline, we can increase our collective knowledge and have some productive dialogue as we explore the intersection of law, policy, and military space. I'm pleased to do so this year in person, since having folks face-to-face actually helps my team get after one of my key tasks within the command, and I have 5 of them, and one of them is maintaining and building key partnerships. So last year we were able to benefit from some lively debate, I'm told, and discussion on the law of armed conflict in space, some National Security Council perspectives, and of course, networking. I think our discourse will be even more valuable this time around. The U.S. Space Command has since celebrated its 2nd birthday, declared IOC, and we are building our roadmap to FOC. Space law is key in that effort as we define how we operate in the space domain. And as we build and maintain our relationships, I'm pleased to see so much participation from across the legal spectrum with interest in space law, our allies, partners, interagency, civil, commercial, as well as academia. So I understand coming in here today, there's approximately 80 of you folks that are sitting before me. And I think we have online close to 120. So when you add that together, public math, I think we got close to 200 great legal professionals that are participating. And it's really great to see some of our allies and partners and agency partners represented here this afternoon. In particular, the Honorable Bashar. Where is he this afternoon? Is he here? Nice to see you, sir, from the Air Force General Counsel participating. I understand, sir, you're here for the Space Symposium. And you were able to carve out some time to come up here today. So I think that's a good start to your Space Symposium. I don't think you'll hear much of this at the Space Symposium, but obviously it underlines or is the underlayer, if you will, for the conference. And myself, I'm getting ready to go down there this afternoon and have a full week at the Space Symposium. So thanks for being here today. Also, we have Air Vice Marshal Tamara Jennings from the Royal Air Force's Director of Legal Services. Lieutenant General Rockwell. Where's Lieutenant General Rockwell? Nice to see you today. Thank you for being here. Miss Jenkins from OSD General Counsel, is she here? Very good. Nice to have you here, ma'am. Mr. Paul Weber from the General Counsel for Blue Origin. Very good. Nice to see you today. And Dr. Marco Ferrazzano Ferzani. Did I get that right? Is he here today? Maybe online? But between the panelists and the audience, we have some participants from the UK, France, European Space Agency, NASA, NRO, NSA, and many others. So that is a great turnout for the conference today, especially being in our second one. So the theme for this year's conference is responsible behavior in outer space, which I feel, and many of you may agree with me, is a very timely topic. There have been quite a few recent provocative incidents or operational developments related to irresponsible behavior. I'll begin with the uncontrolled reentry of the Chinese Long March rocket back in May of 2021. And if you recall, that was a worldwide alert, if you will, that they had a very large, I think 18-ton rocket body that was spinning in through the atmosphere, and at that size and shape survived and fortunately splashed into the ocean, but gave us great concern as we look to responsible behaviors in terms of how do we bring spacecraft back into the Earth's orbit in a responsible way. That, I don't believe, was probably one of them. Of course, we had the Russian Noodle test back in November of 2021, where that was widely condemned by the international space community as well as just the international community. So if you remember that particular incident, that was where they launched a direct descent ASAT missile and destroyed one of their own satellites, creating a debris field of approximately 1,500 pieces of debris that we continue to track today by the great guardians that are out at Vandenberg Space Force Base, and obviously presents a risk to the International Space Station and, quite frankly, the Chinese space station. China's development and testing of their ground-based anti-satellite capabilities, if you recall, they did that back in 2007. They continue to do it today with the DN1 and the DN2. The SJ-17s, the SJ-21s, these are the satellites with robotic arms, allegedly for mitigation debris on orbit. But as we saw with SJ-21, it actually has the capability to grapple and then move satellites on orbit. China in July 2021 demonstrated a hypersonic weapons test, flew the longest it's ever flown, about 40,000 kilometers, longest flight time more than 100 minutes of any PRC land attack system to date. So the continued development, not only of these on-orbit type of capabilities or direct descent capabilities, but also a vastly growing array of ground-based lasers and jammers by not only China, but Russia as well. Conversely, there have been some recent developments that furthers what is decidedly responsible behavior by our allies and partners. And a couple of examples of those is the Japanese ELSA spacecraft successfully captured a simulated piece of space debris in August of 21, really paving the way with a technological advancement that would allow us to clean up space debris in the future. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out SpaceX's Starlink constellation. Elon Musk, more than 2,000 satellites in low Earth orbit today, providing worldwide internet capability. And of course, we've seen what that can do, particularly in the Ukraine case, in terms of bringing worldwide internet capability to people in Ukraine. In response to competitor actions, there have been some recent policy developments from our leaders in Washington, D.C. My boss, Secretary Austin, released the Tenets of Responsible Behaviors last July and tasked me, as all good bosses do, right? Tasked me to develop and coordinate guidance on those behaviors in the Department of Defense. In December, if you recall, we had the first National Space Council under this current administration, and I had the honor of representing Chairman Milley on that council. And if you recall the timing of that, it was about a couple of weeks after the Noodle test that I described earlier, and that was an opportunity for the national level leadership to start talking about irresponsible behavior. They gave us a great example, unfortunately, of being able to make that case. The Vice President took that opportunity to do it. Deputy Secretary of Defense, Dr. Hicks, did the same thing. And if you listen to the words of Administrator Nelson of NASA, he too talked about it deliberately, or quite a bit. So I was sitting at the end of the table because I was the junior person, and I didn't have to say anything because they said everything that needed to be said about that. So that to me is a powerful example of, you know, how we think about it today. It doesn't have to be the Department of Defense or the military that talks about responsible behavior, but rather our elected leadership. These policy developments were a key part of the discussion. And if you recall, the White House announced the release of its Space Priorities Framework that very same day, which emphasizes maintaining a robust and responsible U.S. space enterprise. So describing responsible behavior is valuable, I think we would all agree, to the safety, security, and stability of the space domain and deterring a conflict that would extend in or into space. Since the foundational space treaties entered into the force in the 1960s and the 1970s, the use of the space domain has changed and increased significantly as we know today. The tenets of responsible behavior complement or reinforce the legal framework for outer space. When widely understood and followed, the tenets of responsible behavior can help to reduce the risk of misunderstanding or miscalculation. But responsible behavior is a broad term for space. Unlike the other domains, there is less precedence. The consequences for irresponsible acts in the terrestrial domains are rather well defined through centuries of diplomacy in the land, air, and sea domains. This is less well defined in space. Treaties, laws, and agreements are also less prescriptive. This includes legal obligations like the Outer Space Treaty's requirement to operate with quote unquote due regard for others' interests in outer space. I think this is a sound principle, but it does not describe what due regard looks like. Years of increasing activity in the space domain have helped us understand that more, but there is still some uncertainty. Even if we had bright lines, the space law treaties lack an enforcement mechanism if states or non-state entities ran afoul of those standards. So there is room for more, such as methods to coordinate and communicate about testing and experimentation in space. And we are making progress as an integrated team. The UK-led and the DoD-DOJ-backed United Nations resolution on norms of behavior in space aims to help nations find some agreement on what states should and should not do to help mitigate misunderstandings and miscalculations that could lead to conflict. The first open-ended working group on this resolution is scheduled for the 9th through the 13th of May, with another one slated in 2023. So U.S. Space Command, as you would expect, is reinforcing Secretary Austin's directive on the tenets of responsible behavior through our daily professional conduct in operating our space systems, both terrestrially as well as on orbit. Our space domain awareness missions, monitoring, detecting, characterizing, and attributing on-orbit activities, and acting as the first line of defense for potential nefarious activities. Our collective efforts with our allies and partners, including events like today's conference. Through a shared narrative, we collectively deter conflict through strategic messaging. A key example of this is the response to the Russian ASAT test that I mentioned earlier. The U.S. and our allies and partners and much of the global space community quickly, I say again, quickly and widely condemned the events as threatening and irresponsible. It was a matter of minutes to maybe an hour before the greater community worldwide condemned that very event. And that was a result of great coordination, not only within the U.S. government, but also our allies and partners who we were working with day and night until that event actually occurred so that we were all ready. And unfortunately, as I watched that event unfold in my Joint Operations Center, and my J2 looked at me and said, yes, it's going to be a direct hit. I said, I hope not, and unfortunately it was. But as a result of that, we responded very quickly, and we have done so in the past. This isn't the first event where we've had a synchronized message that was strategically disseminated to call out this type of behavior. So the Secretary's memo specifically directed U.S. Space Command to develop guidance regarding the tenets in collaboration with DoD stakeholders. We have developed that guidance, and it's in its final staffing for approval, and we really look forward to sharing that with you soon. So in conclusion, I think it's more important now more than ever to advocate for and agree on tenets of responsible behavior in space. The challenge of today's strategic environment is very unique. It's neither the Cold War of 5 decades following World War II, nor the era of terrorism and counterinsurgency we've experienced since the early 2000s. And now today, I tell the folks that work in the command that we are not in normal times as we look to what's happening in Europe today. Rather, it's a new, unique environment of emerging and resurgent peer competitors, along with the enduring threats from those with significant asymmetric capabilities. Your work in guiding the legal and policy frameworks of what occurs in space is key to how we operate, protect, and defend, and deter in this new strategic environment. So in closing, I would just tell you, I hope you have a very productive next 3 days and you enjoy it, all being together. I'll be just down the street at the symposium. Maybe I'll duck out of there and come up here, spend a couple hours. I'll see how that works out. But really, I hope it's a very productive conference for you. And I really thank you for taking the time and the commitment to be there. This is extremely important work that you're all doing today. And we got great results from the last conference. I'm very optimistic we'll get great outcomes from this conference. So thank you very much for your time today. And I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you.